Everyone. Good to see you all today. I hope that you're excited about today's presentation. I know I am. Where are you guys visiting us from? Go ahead and you can put that or on the chat box where you're joining us from. I'm in Georgia, Oklahoma. Okay, Louisiana, California. Stacy, how you doing out there? You okay out there? St. Louis, South Carolina, Boston, New York. This is amazing. Tampa. Right. It's good to see everybody honing in from the different states. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I see Tampa there. All right. I remember beautiful Bayshore Boulevard, and I think it's I forgot the name of the park, but I lived in Tampa for about 8 years. So oh yeah, thank you so much for being here, Johnny. Columbus, Ohio. All right. New Jersey. Doing good, pretty close to the fires, but haven't had any orders yet. All right, Stacy, I hope that you and your family and friends continue to stay safe out there. San Antonio, Salt Lake City, Utah, Melbourne. There's Corey. He says OH, Connecticut. I just love seeing where everyone is from. We're just going to give it a couple more seconds here as people are starting to arrive in the room, and then we're going to get started with today's presentation. But I do want to welcome you all to Skill Up, how to get hired with your skill set. We're happy that you guys could join us today and look forward to your participation in today's presentation. We have two amazing presenters today, and so excited to hear from them. Hey, Tallahassee. All right, Victorville. All right, wonderful. Well, let's go ahead and get started because we have a lot to cover today. And my name is Sonia Moffett. I am a career engagement partner here at SNHU Career Services. I'm joined by my colleagues Brooke Brigham, who will be in the chat box today. Amy Ames, who is our career director, will also be in the chat box. Corey is here with us, Corey White, and he is an employer relations partner, one of our awesome employer relations partners who bring amazing employers like Yana, who will be joining us here today. And then, of course, we have Yana and we have Amanda, and they will be our wonderful presenters today. So glad to have everyone here. I want to read our accessibility statement here. Individuals with accessibility issues, you can, or needs, requiring accommodations may reach out to our OAC, which is our online accommodation center at oac at snhu.edu, or you can call 866-305-9430. For campus students, you can reach out to CAC at snhu.edu or call 603-644-3118. And then SNHU staff and faculty, of course, can reach out to HR at snhu.edu. A request for live captioning or live ASL interpreting requires at least 3 weeks advance notice. Thank you so much for being a part of today's presentation. In addition to this, I would like to also let you know that if you need to enable live captioning, you can follow these steps on the screen, and this will apply to your screen only, so you don't have to worry about it disrupting anyone else. And you can click More Actions icon and then select Language and Speech. And finally, turn on live captions. So if you would like to do that, you can do that now as we get into our presentation today. If you want to connect with Career Services here at SNHU, you can connect with us with a variety of ways: Facebook, Instagram, X, LinkedIn, and YouTube. We also have our Career Center where you can email us for any of your career needs, including your resumes, cover letters, mock interviews, LinkedIn profiles, and other professional development services at cocecareer at snhu.edu, or you can call 888-672-1458. And of course, we have our new virtual online career center. I hope that all of you have been out there to look at this. If you haven't, bookmark that today. We'll put it in the chat box later on after the presentation. Visit Career 360, where we feature a variety of professional development resources for you, and also programmatic resources, so you can find out what can you do with the career or the degree that you're getting, and what micro credentials, software, and other things that you need to do and have in order to position yourself more competitively in the marketplace. And then, of course, we have SNHU Connect, our in house social media platform. And hopefully, you all are out on that as well to connect with your fellow students from across the globe. Skill up our career readiness thing. And I'm sorry, I can't see too well because of the way my screen is configured. So excuse me if I'm making a couple of mistakes. But the career readiness is a process of developing the skills and knowledge needed to be successful in the workplace. So it's a framework that helps you and just to prepare for your career. And it's important for both education and employment to have these skills. And so we're really, really happy to have our dean, Associate Dean of Liberal Arts, who will be joining us in a few seconds to talk more about the skill of written communication. So we will learn more about that from our guest, Amanda Groves, who is our AD for Liberal Arts. And with no further ado, I'd like to introduce to all of you and present to others Amanda Groves.
Thank you, Sonia. Hi, everybody. I'm glad you could all be here today. And as Sonia said, in the next few slides, I'm going to explain just a little bit about how the writing skills you're working on in your courses can translate to other courses and even into industry. And I always say one of the benefits of online learning is that our primary mode of communication is text. So in every single course you're in, you're getting ample opportunity to practice that skill because you're communicating via discussion board or email, you're submitting longer written assignments like written assessments or journals. So there's just ample opportunity to keep working on that skill in every course. And I know as we've had conversations at the school about what is writing intensive and what is not, really you're doing a lot of writing intensive work in every course in the online modality. So it's really conducive to building that skill, and you can also tap into that as you go into those workplace scenarios and really be confident in that knowledge that I have actually done quite a bit of writing over the course of my degree program. Sonia, you can jump to the next one. And what I've included here is just some of these foundational concepts that we have here at SNHU. I do want to issue the caveat. I know that not everyone in this meeting will likely have taken first year composition with us at SNHU. We have a lot of students coming in with transfer credit. That's perfectly fine. The foundation is pretty universal when it comes to these two courses. So no matter where you took first year composition, whether it was with us here at SNHU or at another university, you do have those building blocks. And in the next slide, I'll talk about how all of those fit together with a four-year undergraduate degree. But what we have on this slide are the competencies for our two first-year composition courses. And I just highlighted some of the words that I think are key phrases or key terms that you can maximize on as you're thinking about how to translate those skills to, again, other courses, other writing tasks in the industry. But really what we try to do here at SNHU with our first composition course, so that's English 130, is critical analysis and critical reading, and then doing an explanation of a writer's choices. So we're really dissecting the writing and giving that critical evaluative piece, and then adapting the writing process to various writing situations. And this will be key, a key skill that you will learn in first year composition, because it really helps you adapt to different scenarios you'll be writing in. So depending on your program, the goal is always that first year composition is going to be kind of a universal need meeting situation so that you know what to do and what questions to ask when you get into your program. So for our second comp course, we look at research and persuasion. So conducting research, vetting your sources, figuring out if you have valid and credible sources. And that's what fits into that second competency with the qualification piece. So integrating that qualified evidence into your writing to take a position. And again, it all goes back to written communication and figuring out how we do it in that form of communication. You can go to the next one, Sonia. And this again is it's kind of a snapshot of where we look at the trajectory of your academic journey depending on the course level. So again, when you're in that first year comp or you're in your 100 level courses, you're really writing to learn and explore. And we differentiate this from learning to write because writing to learn is more of that reflective writing where you're opening your mind up to that space and you can explore different fields, especially when you're in that general education space. Once you bump up to the 200 level, we're still doing a lot of that, but you're learning a little bit more of the formatting or, the unique elements of writing across the curriculum. The 300 level is where you will start to dip into your discipline and learn more of the industry specifics and what is expected in your field. So more of it will be genre specific, where you're writing, a report versus a white paper or something that is going to be common in your field. And then, of course, at the 400 level, that's when you're getting to the capstone experience. So really, all of these blocks should fit together and scaffold so that when you get to that 400 level experience, you have kind of a wide range of knowledge as to how writing should look across the curriculum, but then also definitely in your discipline. Okay, next one. So I wanted to include this. The writing team here at SNHU, we have done a lot of wonderful work with our learning science and assessment team to really infuse these principles into the course design. And I wanted to mention these here because I think they're good markers for students as well to kind of look at where these skills are being assessed within the courses, how they're being explained. And as you go about, writing, if you're marketing these skills, to a future employer, these are things that you can keep in mind that I have been exposed to this. I've been asked to do this over and over again. And these are some really key pieces of, written communication that I need to make sure that I infuse in what I'm producing. So of course, number one for us is language alignment. So using consistent terminology across all the course materials. What that means is, we have a first year composition glossary. So we really want to take students from this common understanding of a term. So maybe it's a thesis statement. It's called a thesis statement in your first year composition course. But then as you go into your discipline specific area, that same term might be referred to as something different. And that's also, as a writer yourself, you always want to be aware of that, the terminology needs, what your audience might be familiar with versus what they aren't. And you can use that as a bridge to recall prior knowledge. So that's something that's definitely incorporated into our design. Exemplars and templates, there's absolutely nothing wrong with seeing a model of what something should look like. And so we are working more and more to infuse those to, again, clarify expectations and to reduce that cognitive load. Because when you're in your courses, we don't want you to have written communication or assessment as the hurdle. We want you to grapple with the course content and what you're trying to learn, like about that field. But where we can provide exemplars and templates to help usher you into that discipline specific writing, we are definitely working towards that. And you can think about that as well. I don't want to jump too far ahead to the next slide, but we'll talk about some things you can do in the workplace to kind of mimic that. Always plain language principles, again, thinking about linguistic diversity and the diversity of your audience, and thinking about how to make your message accessible, because ultimately, if your audience can't grasp what you're trying to say, your message isn't going to go very far. So keep that in mind as you are constructing. And again, this is a principle that we infuse into all of our written assessment in the courses as well. Writing process. I'm sure many of you have heard about writing process, but definitely a course design principle here. So we do the milestone submissions that lead up to a summative submission. So you've seen that in your courses. So usually the milestones will build you towards that summative submission. They'll work together in some way. Where we can, we want to see drafting and revising and responding to feedback. And that whole process really helps as well with you are grappling with the content, but also figuring out how to put those building blocks together so that when you get to that final submission, and hopefully as you're getting out of those courses, that process is reiterated. So we start that in first year comp, but over and over, you're learning how to tackle written assessment without that necessarily being an element of the course. You can build it for yourself, but especially in the workplace. And then the rhetorical situation. So a simpler model for this is PACT. That's a popular one right now. But really just we're breaking down those assessments and making sure that we're always identifying the purpose of the written assessment, the audience, and then what the conventions are. So the expectations, and then including the trouble spots, like the areas where you might need to be cognizant of this common student pitfall or something. So again, all of these are design principles. And if you want to jump to the next slide, Sonia, I'll talk about how you can also translate some of this into your workplace writing skills, or create this marketable narrative about what you've been exposed to and asked to do. And it can really help, as you're trying to figure out, do I have the skills necessary to tackle written communication in this field? If you've been a student at SNHU, the answer is yes. But the first one there, again, like I said in the last slide, be mindful of consistent terminology needs. So explain those new terms. Always make sure you're not leaving out that information. You can definitely seek out examples of writing tasks. So if you're in the workplace and you're asked to produce something that is completely new to you, ask for prior examples of what a strong, submission, whatever it is you're being asked to produce, what does it look like? And then note the features that have made it successful. Why is this a successful piece? Because most of the time it's out there. You just have to ask for that. Definitely consider your audience and their language needs. Avoid unnecessary complication or inaccessible language. It's really not necessary, for most genres. Of course, if you're in creative writing, there might be different, considerations with playing with language. But this is something that I think is usually when we look at written submissions and assessments and try to determine how to strengthen the prompt or the assessment. Usually audience and lack of audience awareness is at the crux of why something is falling apart. So that's such a huge piece. So always ask, who's my audience? With the writing process, always break down your writing tasks into manageable components. That, again, being an online student, you've had so much practice with that with all your courses. So definitely a skill to take with you. And then answering those key questions. So why am I writing this? What's the purpose of it? Who am I writing for? How should I format this? And what issues might I encounter as I'm putting it together? And again, you can reach out to colleagues, to managers, to, anyone in the field. You can look in external sources. So there are a lot of good questions that you can ask and skills to keep in mind. And again, just don't forget, you've been exposed to this over and over and asked to produce these written assignments. So you already have so many marketable skills just based on the work that you've already done. So I think that's my last slide, Sonia, and I will turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. This has been some great information, and I am so excited to have our guest here, Yana. Yana is the executive director of the Yiddish Arts and Academics Association of America. The mission of the Yiddish Arts and Academics Association of North America is to promote Yiddish language and culture through academic and artistic events through Yiddish food. Yana, and it's pronounced Yana, strives to preserve and advance Yiddish arts, culture, literature, theater, music, and dance through community building, multi generational events within the United States. Now, let's watch a quick video of our esteemed guest as she talks to us about communication in the workplace. Awesome. Thank you so much, Yana. We appreciate you participating in our video series. I did see some people had a hard time hearing, so I'll put in the chat box the link to the video so that you can all see it later. But we're just so
Yes.
fortunate to have her here with us right now. How are you today, Yana?
How are you? Great, thank you. I'm fine.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being with us today. We greatly appreciate it. We have a lot of things going on in the chat, but we have some questions that we wanted to talk to you about first, and then we'll, if we have time, we're going to get into the Q&A with the
Mhm,
audience, with the students. But the first question is, how do you think written communication skills contribute to an employee's success in the workplace, especially in terms of productivity and collaboration?
mhm. Right. Thank you, first of all, for having me. I'm honored to be here, and you did such a great job. We have a big crowd, and so I'm glad
Yay
to
for our
share
crowd.
my experience with you. I run this nonprofit organization. We have a big group of interns and volunteers who work with us, who come from all over the world. And I can tell you, based on work with those volunteers, interns, that it is very rare that somebody has great communication skills, written communication skills. People who take time to acquire such skills, who do research regarding their audience, and who prepare are rare. So if you put the work, if you take the course, and if you are here, you already took a very important step and you will stand out. So how I see that is we, as I mentioned, we have a lot of interns, volunteers. They communicate with the clients, with the students, with the teachers, with the artists in the organization. And then after a while, I get emails and I ask, where did you find this, Jessica? Where did you find Jack? They're amazing. Where did you find them? So people will recognize if you are a nice person. If even if you read emails, it does come through the personality, the effort you're putting into communication. It does show, and people will appreciate it for sure. And even if we don't end up hiring this person, somebody else from our audience or from our crowd will, because it's a small world after all. So effort that you put in written communication really pays off in the long run because people will appreciate it. So that's
Yes.
my experience. Yeah.
That's lovely. I think that, most of us can agree with that. We love to get an email, that's going to respond to us in a respectful way. So thank you so
Right.
much for that. Um, are there any challenges that you see candidates face when it comes to written communication? And how do you address or evaluate these during the interview or hiring process?
Yes. So it's people nowadays are overwhelmed. They get too many emails, and it's hard to respond, to keep track. Right, the same with we have now texts, emails, Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, and it's all overwhelming. So when interns are applying for jobs for internships, I would recommend to choose just a few places where you really feel like you would be a good fit, not force yourself into something you're not a good fit in, and then really cherish these relations. Don't leave emails unanswered. Don't think like I'll apply to 200 places because then you will not be able to catch up with any of these people. And it's gonna not be a good look if you, let's say, confuse the names of organizations, which happens all the time, by the way. Uh, I get these emails, hello, sir. I'm not a sir.
Right.
Do a basic research, right? Or a text, hello, without the name, without what you're talking about, who you are. Um, Things like that are basics that we have to really keep in mind and really be careful. So if I were, you know, in your shoes, applying for jobs, internships, and then I would just focus on narrow down your research, like where you're applying, and then choose these organizations. Be in touch as much as you can throughout the whole process. If somebody is not responding, wait 3 days. I mean, that's my rule of thumb. Wait 3 days and write to them again. Have you seen my email? Don't write these emails over holidays. You can schedule, if you have time over holidays, schedule these emails and have them sent in the beginning, let's say, of January, right? Don't write them. Don't write them on December 24th because the chances
Oh,
it's going to be open, it's not going to happen, right? So be careful when you call. Check the person's time zone when before you call them. Check if it's Miss or Mrs. or Mister. There's some basic things like that, but that's all in the research. And you cannot do research regarding 200 work places, right? That's
right.
impossible. So better to apply for a few and be fully prepared.
Absolutely. I'm happy that you addressed when in the timing of an email because that can make a
Mhm.
significant difference and
Yep.
to be cognizant of any holiday or something like that where it could impede a person's ability to respond. And I also love that you said 3 days because some people might do it every day and so they don't
Yeah.
want to become too pushy with it. So thank you for clarifying that for us. How do written communication skills affect the overall culture and efficiency of an organization, especially as remote or hybrid work becomes more common?
Yes. So here it comes again to research because the world is becoming more and more global. People will be applying for jobs in different countries, and you have to somehow take the time and effort to learn the culture of these countries. Some countries, it doesn't even make sense to email, you have to call. In other countries, you use WhatsApp. Yet in different places, you go in person to that place where you're applying, and that works better. So you have to explore all of those options and whichever works for you better. Uh, and we don't really know. It really is a time-consuming process to get to know these places you'll be working for, people you'll be working with. And now also we use AI. It has pluses and minuses. So in my own experience, because I travel a lot, I go to different countries, I use AI a ton, especially regarding translation tools. But you can imagine sometimes Google Translate or ChatGPT, they get a lot of problems. You have to double check really. Like for instance, if you're translating something, use different sources, make sure that it's appropriate what you're sending out to the world, right? As much as you can. And in terms of ChatGPT and other similar tools, they're extremely helpful. Again, if we write a lot of emails, but after you use the tool, proofread it. I made this mistake myself. One time I was tired. I was writing to some student, and I just said, I'm so tired. It's like 2 a.m. in the morning. I just ran it through ChatGPT and then I sent it. And the next morning, oh, hell broke out because ChatGPT completely misunderstood what I wanted from it. I didn't proofread it, which I should have done. And that was the beginning of my ChatGPT adventures because
Oh,
I didn't know any
oh,
better. And it took me a while. I had to eventually call this person and explain, I was tired. I'm sorry. I didn't mean what I said. This is the true response. I'm sorry. And the person understood, was nice enough. But I'm never going to do it again.
okay. Lessons learned, right?
Right, right.
And I just had a little side question, just based upon something that you just mentioned too. You're talking about researching and understanding the culture of other countries that you're corresponding with. And so, is there a place that you would go to understand what those cultural norms are that you could tell our audience today? Where and how would they get that information?
Yes. So what I'll see, there is a new phenomenon. American companies um, will have, let's say, some presence in Europe. So people are moving. Americans are moving to Europe. A lot of them, which usually was the other way. So now it's a different trend. And these people, expats, they have their forums on Reddit. Here, social media is excellent. Reddit, Facebook, and WhatsApp. You can join these groups. I found a lot of help. Of course, there are trolls and you'll get a lot of hate for whatever you ask. You're going to have irrelevant responses. But then you'll also find very helpful people who are just in your shoes. And they'll say, yes, I'll explain to you how it works here. Let's meet for coffee. Or
Yeah.
yes, I can proofread this email, no problem. Yes, I know what you're dealing with. I've been through that. So this social media sometimes can really be helpful in that regard. And the same when you're moving from another country to the United States, it will help you with that process as well, which is a strange recommendation, right? But also use the career centers. When I moved to America from Poland, I was there every day. They were checking my resume because Polish CV had to have picture in it, and the big picture,
Okay.
kind of like a passport picture to see, yes, this person, I'm looking into somebody's face. Of course, in the United States, you don't put the picture. So there are, differences like that. And in terms of yes, that if you come from a different country, Career Center should be your second home, I would
Yeah.
say. Yeah,
I love that. Thank you so much for that. I know that wasn't on the screen, but I just wanted to make sure that I asked that
of
question.
course.
I think I made a mistake and jumped forward, but let me go back so that we can entertain the other two questions here, which is what advice would you give to job seekers looking to improve their written communication skills before applying to a job?
Well, it really depends because I'm sure people will have specific questions regarding their jobs, right? I'm just talking from my perspective, and I can tell you from nonprofit perspective, how it works. But if you are volunteering somewhere or if you're interning somewhere, that's an excellent time in your life to ask your mentors, right? And communicate with them and ask them, let them be your gurus in a way. Uh, and because the transition between academia and workplace is a huge transition. So you need some help. And people who will guide you, they'll understand that you maybe don't are not fully there, right, in terms of readiness for the workplace, and they'll help you out as long as you put yourself out there. For instance, I had that intern I had a few interns that were who were doing a lot of communication, written communication with all kinds of people. Some of them would just say, ask me, do you want to write to this person? I said, yes, of course. And if you need any help, let me know. And of course, a week I don't hear from them. And then I hear from the person, who was the recipient of messages that they don't understand what's going on because there was no communication with the intern. And somehow she didn't know what she was sending. She sent it anyways, and it was all blah. You know what I'm saying? There's
Oh,
no. Then I had other interns who said, "Okay, this is my first draft. How does it look like?" And I'm saying, "Okay, this is good. This is not good. This blah 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 blah." And then we went through 3, 4 drafts, and then the result was fantastic. So communicate as clearly as you can. And sometimes we, the mentors, the employers, we don't have much time. So if you remind us what you need, that it makes it easier for us to help you out. But it's better to ask more questions in the process, because of course we are not ideal, as mentors either, and we need to be reminded.
yeah,
um, Especially, we have hundreds of interns. It's hard sometimes to remember all the tasks and everything. So the more communication with you, the better. And we will remember you if you are communicating with us,
right.
for
I
sure.
I love
Yeah.
that. Thank you so much for that answer, because even if the students get a new job, they may get on that new job and they need a little bit more coaching along or orientation to their role. And I think that even applies there too, right? Is don't be afraid to
Mhm.
ask those questions in the beginning, because 6 months down the line, it's going to be expected they know. And so
Yes.
having that brevity to be able to ask questions in the beginning is so important. Thank you so much for that. We have one more question on
Mhm.
the screen, and then we're going to get into the next screen here. But looking ahead, how do you see the
Yes.
role of written communication evolving in the workplace?
Yes. What I see is probably that the chat GPT will be very more and more powerful, and AI will replace us in million ways. I don't know if it's going to get smarter or it's not going to get smarter, and how to control this process, nobody knows, right? So um, I'm not sure, honestly, but what we can do, we can prepare ourselves, right? Be humans. Let's not become robots. Because nobody wants to talk to robots. If we are
Right.
over professional, you know what I'm saying, you can harm yourself. Because if
Yeah.
your answers and emails and all your communication sounds robotic, nobody will want to correspond with you in that manner. So you have to be careful. And I know it's convenient to copy paste, copy paste, copy paste, but you have to make sure that you know who your audience is. Really.
Oh,
So
so
we
good.
nobody knows really what the future will bring because the technical advances are so huge. Uh, we just don't know what's going to happen in the next 10 years. But I think if we remain humans and we do our job, we do the research, what I was talking about, then we'll be fine.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. All right.
Just a
Let's
second. I have to open the door. I'll be right back.
Okay, no problem. So while she's gone, we're going to open up the Q&A. So thank you so much, everyone who has already submitted your questions. It looks like a lot of you, this is a robust conversation, so appreciate your engagement here today. For those of you who do have questions, or if something comes up while you're listening, feel free to put your question into the chat box, and we're going to do our best to get to all of the questions today. If not, then we will definitely be able to follow up with you through Career Services. One of the ways that you can ask your question, if we have time to come off of the mute, is to raise your hand. So there is an icon on your screen at the
Mhm.
top that says raise hand icon. And then at that point, you can be unmuted to ask your question out loud. So I'm going to start with the initial questions that were in the chat box for you. Amanda, would you like to hone in on any of these as well?
Sure. Do you want me to read the questions or
Sure.
just answer?
You know what?
Sure.
I think it's great for you to read the questions because
Mhm.
I
Okay.
love you love your insight from your perspective. So that'd be awesome. Thank you.
Well, thank you to Brooke. She's passed along some of the questions. So, one that was in the chat is how do you learn to shift voice with written communication when you're responsible for sending out comms on behalf of your company, boss, leadership, etc.? That's a really good question. Yana, if you have a first stab
Yeah,
at it, you
who
can
is
answer.
responding? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Could you please repeat the question?
Oh, yeah. I can
Yeah,
read it
thank you.
again. So it
Yeah.
was, how do you learn to shift voice with written
Mhm.
communication when you're responsible for sending out comms on behalf of your company, boss, leadership, etc.?
Yeah, so this depends on the job. It depends on the work environment. But so I don't know if it's responding to the emails, right, or it's sending the first emails. What I would say is you match the company policy, right, the company culture. And if it's a response from somebody, then you would uh, see the tone of the first email and then kind of try to be writing in the same tone. So look at the culture of the company, first of all, and try to work in a similar manner. And if you don't know exactly if it's good, then again, you write to your boss and ask, is what you're expecting from me? This is, sorry, that's my first time. I would like to make sure I'm doing a good job. It's much better to ask for this feedback than to make a mistake.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Asking for feedback from other people before you send out the message. And one of our courses here at SNHU that I oversee is English 220, which is business communication. And there are some practice assessments in actually doing just that, tailoring a message. And actually one good practice is kind of having to write a memo of information that is not going to be received well. It's like a bad news memo. And you have to really put yourself in your audience's shoes. So all the things that Yana mentioned and asking those questions, who's my audience? How will they receive it? You really have to tap into your empathy skills too
Mhm,
and try to see it from their viewpoint. But yeah, I think definitely also, especially if the information is sensitive or you know it's going to, what we would traditionally consider a hostile audience, it's always good to get multiple perspectives before you actually send that message and make
mhm,
sure. And of course, like Yana said, your manager, your boss, they can give you a lot of that insight too. But depending on the audience, you really have to shift and try to see, read it from their perspective, which can be hard. So,
mhm,
but it's a good skill to have. Another question, Yana, that Brooke has in
mhm.
here from the chat is how do you communicate with your boss? that's a that's a good question and a hard one to answer.
Yes, depends on the boss
Yeah.
because each boss is different, different countries, some people bring their private life to work a lot. Like where I grew up, and I lived most of my life in Poland. They do. They start the day and they tell all the team members, oh, my grandma is sick and my whatever, my daughter has a whooping cough, whatever, they'll tell the story and they expect the whole team to mix private with the professional life. That's kind of normal, not in corporate world, but in this, more traditional, like family businesses, right? The smaller companies. That's the case in the United States. I have never seen anything like that. So, learn a little bit about the boss, look on LinkedIn, and wherever you can. Sometimes what's helpful is to listen to interviews. There are some interviews with some bosses online, right? And that's very helpful too, to get to know the personality a little bit. And then that's helpful. The more you can find out, the better. And each boss will be completely different, for sure.
Yeah, I love bringing in just research skills and getting to know. And I love that you bring that cultural piece as well and really knowing Yeah, where that line is on personal connection versus professionalism, and
Mm.
it's good to kind of take that sensitively, figure that
Yes.
out as you're getting to know a boss. So, yeah, that's great.
Oh, and I'm sorry, there are all these questions on chat. If somebody is a boss who throws you under the bus, then it's it's time to go. It's time to go. Sometimes people don't have a choice, and so if you cannot go right away, stay, but think, make a strategy to go. Because to spend your life in a toxic environment is not good, and the world is huge. Right now, we've never had opportunities like that ever in the history of humankind. It's not like we're stuck in some place and we cannot change our path. We can in a big way.
Yeah, and don't forget all your marketable skills from being
Yes.
a new student. But yeah, that's a great answer. This is another twist on the AI question, and you mentioned that, Yana, in one of your previous responses. But how do you get through AI resume filters while still
Uh-huh.
having it be readable?
Well, as long as you are a student, go to the Career Center. I think you offer this service, right? Reading resumes. Yeah, that's much better than AI. You can first work with the AI and then go to the actual experts. And even out of academia, there are companies that will do it for you. And lots of them are free of charge. So why not use these services? Yeah, that would be my advice. Because AI is a good first to start with AI on your first draft, but it will never be the final version, right? And of course, if you're applying for jobs, internships, you need to have a few drafts, not just one. So never send the same document to multiple companies because it's not going to work. And that's why it's better to send just to a few companies and not to hundreds. And when you're applying, make sure that this is a good fit because a lot of people are applying blindly everywhere. And that's a big mistake. And nobody will take you seriously like that. Another thing, I don't know if that's everybody's experience, but if I see to whom you may concern, it concerns me that it's written that way. It should have the name of the person or at least the name of the company, to the management of blah, 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 but not just to whom it may concern. At
That's
least that's,
excellent.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I see a lot.
yeah. Yeah, this is just sometimes that initiative of seeing that an applicant has taken that extra step, and maybe you don't have your name listed in the job posting, but if someone takes that extra step to find it and includes it in that cover letter, yeah, it
Mhm.
does. It goes a long way with me too when I read
Right,
application
right,
letters.
right.
There was and I saw another connected question pop up in the chat too. So I think these two together fit well, and it's a really good question. But how can you adapt your communication skills when you are neurodivergent? And I think in the chat, the question was, how
Mhm.
can you better communicate with neurodivergent people? So I guess from both sides.
Yes, yes, yes. We see it a lot, and I think just make it clear what the situation is. We had this situation with a lot of very talented interns and volunteers, and made huge contributions to the company. We just have to know this first thing, and then we'll make sure if we don't have people on our team who understand the situation, we will make sure to educate them so they can communicate with you in a better way, because it's a huge piece of information, very, very relevant. And I mean, I don't know, I cannot tell you regarding all the companies in the whole world, but if I see this notification, I know how to approach it because it's been already the case. We've had these practices that make it easier for the intake form, and sometimes we have to shift our um, practices a little bit differently. Let's say instead of having a team meeting, we'll have one-on-one meeting, things like that. So just make it clear so people know what is going on.
Yeah, and I think too, just to go back to one of those the plain language principle of design, and so for our courses here at SNHU, but also as you're constructing your own writing, I know something we've worked hard to do that seems like a low lift, but as we go through our assessments, we try to remove any idiomatic phrasing, so idioms, so like
Uh-huh.
things that we say as part of our culture, like getting your feet wet. Not everyone
Mhm.
from every background knows
Well,
what that
get it.
means.
Yeah.
And that's a cultural thing too. It's not necessarily about
Mhm.
neurodivergence, but really weeding out some of those unnecessary things and making sure that the terminology and the language is clear, I think is really the best path forward to making sure that
Mhm.
everybody, no matter their needs, they understand the message that's being
Yeah.
conveyed.
Very good point.
Yeah, it's everywhere, and we let them sneak in, and we don't we don't see
Mhm.
them all the time. But it's good to do, as
Yeah.
you're editing, like do a read through just to make sure that there's nothing in there that might be inaccessible for someone from a different background. Let's see. I think that might be all the questions, Brooke and Sonia, that I'm seeing. Oh, go for it, Sonia. We have time for one more question.
Mhm.
Yes, if there is one more question. If not, we could certainly move forward. But I think this has been great information. Yana, thank you so much for the information that you provided to us, just from so many different perspectives. I think it's very important, and we really appreciate you being here and sharing the information that you've shared with us today. Um, and
Thank you.
so, yes, you're welcome. Absolutely.
Yes, I'm
And
putting just a second. I'm putting my email in the chat if people have further questions or need anything. And
wonderful.
if of course, if you're interested in internships, we have 15 different internships or more.
Thank
Um,
you.
but in general, if people need any help, I'm available.
That is wonderful. Thank you so much. So yes, please in the chat box, please go ahead and put your information in there or ask any additional questions that you have. You can also share your LinkedIn profiles if you'd like to connect with
Okay.
Yana. As she had mentioned LinkedIn earlier for some of the research
Mhm,
that
mhm.
she talked about. Um, and so in closing, just what are you going to do now with the information that you've gained today? So you want to create a SMART goal in one or more of the following areas. So SMART goals are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. And you can work with your career advisor on putting this together. And yes, on your resumes, cover letters, LinkedIn profiles, mock interviews, and there have been some other resources that you can tap into in our chat box today. You can complete the competency assessment tool from NACE. You want to check out our career readiness page on Career 360, and then update and edit your cover letter and resume to practice your written skills. And as Yana mentioned, so important to make sure that you tailor those resumes for those opportunities that you're applying for, to make sure that you're punctuating the skills that you have and the skills that they need. So those are some of the things that you can do to follow up today. So the competency assessment tool is on Career 360, and you can go out there and take a look at that. And we want to thank you for attending. But before we get going here, we had some questions that we wanted to ask you. So Brooke has brought up a poll here in the middle of the screen. So in one word, how do you feel about written communication after today's session? In the chat box, you'll be able to see a way to insert your answers and submit them. So we'll give you a couple of seconds to put your information in and submit. We love to hear the feedback. Enlightened, confident, clear. Great. Oh, someone said lost. So whoever said lost, maybe you can explain in the chat box. Maybe we'll have a chance to elaborate on anything that you might have additional question on. Um, someone said a lot. Great and confident, insightful. This is awesome. Knowledgeable. And for those of you who are lost, if you don't want to explain or elaborate in the chat box, please feel free to reach out to a career advisor for that one-on-one guidance, and you can ask the questions that you need. This is a free and lifetime service to all of our students and graduates. So if you are continuing to have questions, feel free to reach out to a career advisor today. All right. So we have two more questions for you. Am I right, Brooke? It's two more, correct? Awesome. Three more. All right. So this next one says, what do you think is the most valuable takeaway from today's presentation about written communication skills?
Sorry, these are questions for us?
No,
The for the
respondents.
response. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
for the
That's I
students.
see. I see.
Right. How confident are you all in applying the written communication concepts covered today? And finally, which aspects of written communications do you feel need to improve, that you need to improve the most? And you can rank these in order of importance to you. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. I want to say a special thank you to Amanda and Yana for joining us today, to Brooke for just being the rock star that she is, and Amy and Corey, thank you so much for all of the hard work that you put into today's presentation. Thank you again. Again, and Yana, I didn't know if you were able to put your LinkedIn, if you want students to reach out to you via LinkedIn, in the chat box.
Mhm.
And you guys can click on that now and connect. And just remember, when you're connecting with someone new on LinkedIn, remember to always tell them where you met them or where you had an experience
Yes.
with them in the subject line. So, great presentation today at SNHU, something like that. So she'll know who you are, and then you can go on and continue to kind of talk to her and ask additional questions there, and connect for ongoing purposes. But thank you all so much for being here today. Brooke, do you have anything else today to share?
Nope, that's
No,
it.
ma'am.
Thank you all.
Awesome. Well, thank you so
Mhm.
much for
Thank
being
you.
with us. Thank you again, Yana. We really appreciate you taking your time to be here. We know you're super busy, but what an amazing presentation and great information provided today. Thank you. And of
Thank
course,
you,
Amanda,
everybody.
you're
You
welcome.
did a
And of course,
fantastic
Amanda,
job organizing it. I'm very grateful to
yes.
be here.
Yeah, we're so glad that you were able to make it. Because
Mhm.
where are you located? Tell me right now where you are currently.
Well, I'm in Valencia, Spain for another 2 months, and
So what
then we
time
go.
is it there?
No, it's 7 p.m. It's not too
7
bad.
p.m. So that is what she's done. She's taken her evening to come and be here with us. So let's get some reactions.
Mhm.
If you can click your reaction button at the top. How much do we love Yana for taking her evening to be with
It's
us?
not
Like
too
that
bad.
is
It's not 1 a.m. It could be worse.
we are very grateful to you for your time and for this great information. And we have a couple of hands up, and I know that we have about a couple of minutes left. Do you have a question? Time for one more question from one of our students?
Doris, I just unmute. You have the ability to unmute and ask your question.
Thank you, Amanda, so much for being here as well and talking about our amazing liberal arts programs. We definitely appreciate you as well and all the work that you and your team are doing to just make this a great experience for our students. So thank you.
Thanks for having me. This was fun. And
Yes,
thank
it
you,
was.
Yana.
Thank you. Thank you,
You ladies
everybody.
have to come back. Yeah, okay, you have to come back another time.
Mhm.
This is great. Well, since we are at 12:59, I don't think I was able to hear Doris. So Doris, if you want to place your question in the chat box, we'll see if we can get, she says she's unable to
Hmm.
mute.
Gotcha,
And that's
gotcha.
okay. If you put your question in the chat box, we'll make sure that we can get it over to Yana and to Amanda. And also be sure to reach out to our career services team. You can
Mhm.
find us on Career 360 as well and get some of the answers that you need. I hope that everyone has an amazing day. And I'm Sonia Moffett. Have a great one. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good
Thank
night or
you.
day.
Good.
Bye.